Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flow 360. I'm your host, D. Raja Dikari. Today, as a guest, I have Anne McLean, who was my counselor actually in high school. So I'm really happy to have you here today, and we're going to talk about your life journey and the story. Let's get it started. Welcome to Flow 360, Ms. McLean.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm always happy to be with you, Daraj.
Thank you so much. Let's get it started by talking about where you're born and how that environment made you who you are. So let's talk about Livingston, Texas.
I was born in Livingston. I was the third girl in a family that really wanted a boy. So thankfully, 2 years later, my brother was born.
Okay.
But I grew up in that little town, and my father was a forester, and my mom was a teacher.
Okay.
And they, when I told them I was going to go away to college to Texas A&M, my dad said, "That's a boys' school." But I went with a good friend, so I grew up there. I was very fortunate. My very first job was with a lovely lady named Miss Franklin, and I worked in her art shop.
Okay.
And she taught me how to paint, and I had a wonderful time with her. I made 50 cents an hour.
50 cents an hour. Wow. When was that?
That was probably in 1971.
71. Okay. Wow. All right. So obviously you told me that you went to Texas A&M. How big of a change was that for you, growing in a little community and going to bigger school?
It was traumatic.
Yeah.
Because but in a good way. It was. I loved it because I had always been the adventurer, and my high school graduating class had like 110, 114 in it.
Okay.
And I went to A&M, and my biology class was as big as my high school.
Okay. Yeah. That's not bad, honestly, right?
No, it was. I loved A&M, although A&M went from 13,000 the semester before I got there to 34,000 when I graduated.
With the amount of student attending, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And when did you realize that you wanted to attend college and pursue education?
I was always a good student. I always made good grades.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it didn't take much effort.
Okay.
So when I graduated near the top of my class, and I knew I wanted to go to college. I think my parents expected me to go to not to a tier 1 university. So it was, that was my doing. And I said, I want to go to a big college, big university. But I didn't really know where I wanted to go until my senior year.
Okay.
And a friend that I had had since second grade lived in a different town, said, "I'm going to go to A&M, come go with me." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that."
Yeah.
So I applied.
So you had someone with you, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
But we roomed together in the summer, and we were not compatible.
Didn't work out.
Didn't work out. So I got different roommates in the fall and went to A&M. I loved it.
Obviously, you had science and math as your, when you started teaching. Those are the subject that you got into. We all have different aspirations as a kid. I want to be this or that. Were you always wanting to be a teacher, or what was your target? What was your goal?
No, I wanted to be a social worker.
Social worker, okay.
I read Christie, a novel about a social worker in Appalachian. And I wanted so badly to do that. But my parents were like, "You will be a teacher." And since they were paying the bill,
Yeah.
they got to say what I would be.
Yeah.
So my major changed to education, and I actually got science. I didn't get math until later.
Okay. As a teacher coming in, like you mentioned, your mom was a teacher. Was it an easy change for you, or
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
you were used to it?
Well, I don't know. I'm one of those people that I adapt pretty easily. So my first job was in Aldine ISD.
Okay.
And I taught sixth grade science. And, they were sixth graders. We had fun. It was not much of a problem. I do know that, and you know this, that I have kind of a big personality. Little body, short body, big personality. So I never really had discipline problems like a lot of people do when they enter teaching.
Yeah.
I just always, I loved my kids too. Still do.
Yeah, you do, obviously. That's why you come back and hang out with us, reach out to us. So you obviously, got in this field knowing what you're getting into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you mentioned to me that you went to get master's after you started teaching, right? Did you wanted to change the job?
No.
At some point, or?
No, by that time I was pretty entrenched in education. Although I will tell you that when my son was supposed to go to kindergarten, I held him out. And I held him out for a year. And then at the end of that year, a friend said, I have a friend who is looking for a teacher to teach software. And I didn't go back to teaching.
Okay.
I went and I taught software, and this was in the old days when they taught DOS and Lotus and before Windows.
Okay.
And
wow.
I taught those courses, and through that I got offered a job at an engineering firm, and I was their help desk person.
Okay.
And I loved it because it was teaching, but in a very different environment.
Yeah.
And I did that for 5 years. And then one night they sold us.
Okay.
And I went back to teaching.
For you being a teacher and a counselor, how much do you think in terms of the support that the kids get from their teacher and counselors makes an impact in their life?
I think it's huge. I think it can be.
Yeah.
The student has to be receptive. The parents have to be cooperative.
Yep.
And then the professional has to be invested. But if you get those three, it can be huge. I mean, I still think you can make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah. Well, you obviously did. For me, coming here to the U.S. and struggling at the beginning, you always push me to pursue something bigger that I was not aware of. So I thank you for that.
Well, you're very welcome. But I remember the first day you came in my classroom and you were so shy and spoke almost no English.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, I need to seat him next to a kind person who will help him.
Yeah.
And then I had to go to that person and say, okay, you've been taught not to cheat, but helping Diraj is not cheating.
Yeah.
You need to show him what you're doing.
Yeah, and that was Andrew, I'm going to remember him. He was helpful to me from 7th grade to senior year. I always reached out to Andrew if I ever had any questions or needed help. So thank you for that. Yeah.
He was a sweet kid.
He was.
Good kid.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, and that leads me to a point where I want to ask you, like, obviously you have dealt with families in terms of some being supportive, some not so much. What would you suggest families to do in terms of, asking kids to, get into a certain field or do something, put that dream on them that they're not aware of? How do you think parents should approach their kids?
I think it's very interesting because I personally have 3 biological children and now a 4th adopted one. 2 of mine knew from the get-go what they wanted to do and pursued it. And the other 2 were not so sure. And I think the thing that you have to do as a parent is support the ones that know. Just say, well, I think that's great. Do that, But for the ones that are not sure, I think helping them understand that as they take positive steps in their lives, it will be revealed to them. They'll find an interest. They'll find something that they can pursue and feel good about and enjoy. It's not work if you enjoy it.
That's true. That's true. Obviously, you have had so many first-generation students like me. What are some of the keys that counselors and teachers need to think of when they're approaching first-generation students or advising them?
I think it's very difficult because as professionals, we've come through the system. So the system is familiar. And I think when you're dealing with the first generation, it is explaining every step in detail and saying, I recently helped a young man who just didn't know. He just didn't know. And even to the point of when we registered him for college, I told him, you need to pick your professors. You don't just take who you get.
You have that option to pick the professor.
Because if you pick a professor and you like them, then they will teach other things. And I did that at A&M, So I think for the parents for the students who have no one to mentor them in their family, I think it's so important to find a mentor. Find an adult that you relate to, that you feel comfortable with, that you can ask questions even when you think they sound dumb. Because they're not dumb.
No question is a dumb question.
No. We just left Starbucks and they were training a girl. And I told her, I said, nobody is born knowing anything. Eat, sleep, and that's all. And so anybody who knows something knows it because they learned it. And you can learn it too. Means you just don't know yet.
Correct. And you gotta be curious and have that open-mindedness about learning, willing to learn and take advice from others.
Exactly. And willing to be vulnerable, to ask questions that you don't even know what the answer might be.
And I wanted to ask you a question about, like, what do you think in terms of the youth that we have? A lot of them are not sure of what they want to do or what they want to get into. How do you think they need to envision themselves in order to serve their society and make impact in others' life, as well as find something that they enjoy doing?
Now the counselor in me comes out because there are surveys that you can take online that are free, that are like 150 questions. And that when you get to the end of that survey, it will say, your answers to these questions indicate you might enjoy these fields. Okay? And so it helps you know possibilities and narrow down possibilities. And then you can say, what is that? I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And you can find out about it.
Yeah, do some research on your own.
Exactly, exactly. And you can also ask people who might know.
Yeah.
Because I think it is interesting to me that now you're at the point where you can say you need to research.
Yeah.
But when you're 15, when you're 14, you don't even know what that means.
Correct.
You're like, what? Research? Oh no, a paper.
Yeah. And I feel like the teens at the times that they might know what they want to do, but because they don't have a person in their family or someone that they can lean into, it's difficult for them to, just even ask a question simply. They fear that that might not be something that somebody's going to support them or have answer for.
I know. I think finding a trusted adult is absolutely the most important. And through my life, I recognize mentors like Miss Franklin, who I had my first job with. She really treated me like I had potential.
Yeah.
And just finding that person who says to you, you can do this, is so important.
Yeah.
Because we all have self-doubt. We all have insecurities.
Yeah.
And I think when you're young, you think you're the only one who has all these insecurities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can recall those times when I moved here. There were times when I doubted myself, but I had no other option, right? I wanted to learn. At the same time, it was difficult.
Oh,
right?
I can't even imagine.
What I kind of started doing was just observing. Sometimes you can learn a lot from observing, right?
Yes.
Observing how certain students were, even during lunch, they were working on their homework or, asking for help, whatnot. So leaning on each other. Leaning on each other, like you mentioned, finding someone who believes in you, who kind of pushes you for, better.
And I will tell you, I am not a good note taker. Okay? I cannot take notes.
Yeah.
I can memorize anything. When I went to A&M, I couldn't take a note, Duraj. I had never taken one in my life.
Yeah.
And I went into class and I looked around and I was like, oh, she's taking good notes. And then I would introduce myself and say, I don't want your notes. I'm not asking you to give them to me, but I am offering to study with you.
Yeah.
And if you want to memorize those notes, I'm your girl.
Yeah, I can help you with that, right? Yeah.
And so finding someone, and she and I remain friends to this day. Wow. And we loved the professor and we took courses from him.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be willing to, get out of that comfortable zone at times and go out and seek for help.
And, I think that the hardest thing as human beings is to admit that we're vulnerable.
Yeah. And we suck at some things.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, we don't know certain things and we should be reaching out, asking for help, maybe even Googling these days.
Yeah.
Something simple.
Yeah. I mean, I have a T-shirt that says, I graduated from Texas A&M before Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we didn't have Google. And it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I want to ask you for any advices, anything that you have for our younger generations, any word of wisdom that you want to give.
I think the thing that concerns me the most is apathy. A feeling of,
Yeah.
And that concerns me so much because it is in the moment. It is so in the moment. And I think my advice to young people is to set a goal. Do you want a family?
Yeah.
Do you want children? Do you want to have a spouse? What kind of life do you want them to have? I think kids today don't dream. They don't think about what could be.
Yeah. What potential they might have, right?
Yes. And I think part of that is the world condition. I think the condition of our world kind of puts us all in a frightful state.
Yeah.
And that is sad to me.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm older, I recognize my grandmother thought that things were just getting so bad.
Yeah.
And now my mom, who's 95, thinks things are getting so bad. And I, who am almost 70, think things are getting really bad.
Yeah.
And yet, my grandmother didn't see how I would reach 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom doesn't see how her grandchildren will reach 70. But we will.
Yeah.
We will. And time goes forward. And having something in my own life, I tell myself, plan a trip a year and a half away so that I have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Having that goal, obviously.
Yes. And make goals, make short-term and long-term goals.
Correct.
But recognize what kind of life do you want to have? Because if you don't prepare yourself to achieve that life, you're going to get what life gives you instead of what you achieve.
Yeah, yeah. You're totally correct on that.
And it's not easy.
It's not easy.
But it's worthwhile.
Correct. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mr. McLean. Thank you for being here. And I obviously think what you just said could be very important advice for someone, right? So I'm very thankful to have you here and
you're welcome.
hear from you. Thank you so much. Okay.
It's wonderful to talk to you always.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.